She had everything the world tells you to want. Beauty that stopped conversations, talent that won her an Oscar at 26, a career that was just beginning to reach its full height. And then a prince arrived, literally, and the world sighed with collective happiness, because this, surely, was the perfect ending to a perfect story. It wasn't an ending, it was a door closing. Grace Patricia Kelly was born on November 12, 1929, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, into a family that was wealthy, powerful, and emotionally cold. Her father, Jack Kelly, was a self-made millionaire and Olympic gold medalist in rowing, a man who measured everyone, including his children, by achievement. He thought Grace was the least promising of his kids, too quiet, too dreamy, not tough enough. Her mother was distant in a different way, elegant, controlled, more concerned with appearances than with the interior lives of her daughters. Grace grew up in a house full of people and somehow managed to feel completely alone in it. She found her escape in acting. At the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, something shifted in her. The girl who had been overlooked at home discovered that on stage she existed completely. She was seen, she was real. She worked with a ferocious discipline that surprised everyone who had underestimated her, and there had been many. By the early 1950s, she was in Hollywood, and Hollywood could not look away. She made 11 films in 5 years: Mogambo with Clark Gable, Dial M for Murder, and Rear Window with Alfred Hitchcock, who understood her particular quality, that cool surface with fire underneath, better than anyone. The Country Girl, for which she won the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1955, beating Judy Garland, a result that shocked the industry and announced without question that Grace Kelly was not a pretty face who had gotten lucky. She was the real thing. Hitchcock called her his ideal woman. Gary Cooper said she had more natural sex appeal than any actress he had ever worked with, despite, or perhaps because of, that extraordinary reserve. Co-stars fell in love with her. Directors competed for her. The camera adored her in a way that cannot be manufactured or taught. She had what very few people in the history of cinema have ever possessed, an inner life so vivid it came through the screen without her doing anything at all. And then, in 1955, at the Cannes Film Festival, she met Rainier III, the Prince of Monaco. He was charming. He was European royalty. He ruled a tiny, glamorous principality on the French Riviera. The meeting was arranged partly as a publicity stunt. Grace was there representing American cinema. The palace visit was on the schedule. And yet something happened between them. Letters followed, a proposal followed, and Grace Kelly, at 26 years old, with the best years of her career still ahead of her, said yes. Her father, who had never thought much of her acting career, was thrilled. A prince, a real one. This was the kind of achievement even Jack Kelly could respect. The press called it the wedding of the century. The whole world watched. 1,800 journalists descended on Monaco. MGM sent a camera crew to film it as though it were a movie, because in many ways it looked exactly like one. But Grace knew something the cameras didn't capture. As the boat carrying her to Monaco pulled away from the shore, she stood at the railing and watched the coastline of her old life disappear. Those who were with her said she wept quietly, alone for a long time. She was 26 years old. She was sailing toward a palace, and she was already mourning something she could not yet name. The reality of Monaco arrived quickly. She was no longer Grace Kelly. She was Princess Grace, Her Serene Highness, and that title came with a cage built entirely of protocol, expectation, and the exhausting performance of royalty. Every word she spoke was scrutinized. Every outfit was political. Every public appearance was choreographed. She could not simply go to the market or sit in a cafe or walk down a street without it becoming an event, a photograph, a headline. Rainier was not cruel, but he was a prince before he was a husband, and Monaco was always his first loyalty. He did not fully understand, or perhaps did not want to understand, what Grace had given up. Acting was forbidden, not by law, but by the unspoken rules of her new position. A princess of Monaco could not appear on screen. It was undignified. It was inappropriate. The irony was suffocating. The very thing that had made Grace Kelly extraordinary in the eyes of the world was now the thing she was least allowed to be. Hitchcock came to her with a script, Marnie, and she desperately wanted to do it. She lobbied Rainier. She argued for it. For a brief moment, it seemed possible. And then the people of Monaco made clear that they did not want her princess going back to Hollywood, and Rainier closed the door. Grace did not make another film. The camera that had loved her so completely never saw her face in the way it once had. She threw herself into the role she had been given. She was, by every account, a genuinely extraordinary princess. She modernized the palace. She founded the Princess Grace Foundation to support the arts. She brought culture and warmth to a tiny nation that needed both. She raised 3 children, Caroline, Albert, and Stephanie, with a devotion her own mother had never quite managed. She was present. She was real. She did the job with the same discipline she had brought to every role in Hollywood. But those who were close to her saw the grief underneath. She missed the work with a physical intensity that never faded. She missed the collaboration, the rehearsals, the moment when a scene clicks into place and something true happens between people in a room. She missed being simply Grace, not a symbol, not a title, not a silhouette on a postage stamp, but a woman doing the thing she was born to do. In her later years, she found some peace in poetry. She gave readings, small, private events, and in them something of the old Grace came back. The audience saw it. They leaned forward the way audiences always had, drawn toward whatever it was she carried inside her that made her so impossible to look away from. On September 13, 1982, Grace Kelly suffered a stroke while driving on the mountain roads above Monaco. Her car went over the edge. She died the following day at the age of 52. The world mourned her as a princess. The flowers, the eulogies, the photographs of the woman in the white gown and the pearls, the fairy tale beauty who had married her prince. But the people who knew her in Hollywood mourned something else, the actress who had been interrupted mid-sentence, mid-story, mid-life, and never allowed to finish what she had started. Alfred Hitchcock, when he heard the news, reportedly said nothing for a long time. Then, she was the most extraordinary woman I ever worked with. Not the most beautiful, not the most elegant, the most extraordinary. He had seen what the crown had covered. He remembered who she really was, before the title, before the palace, before the world decided that a princess was a better story than an actress. It wasn't. It never was. Grace Kelly's real story was the one that ended in 1956, when the boat pulled away and she stood at the railing and wept for the life she was leaving behind. Everything after that was performance of a different kind, one she had not chosen, in a role she had not auditioned for, with no director to call cut. She played it beautifully. She always did.
but the camera that loved her most was the one she never faced again.